Hi, in this video we are going to talk about the properties of transformations, of specifically of translations, rotations, and reflections. And properties are basically just characteristics of figures after they're transformed, and how basically side lengths, angle measures, orientation, what's parallel, what's not, how those things come into play once you deal with an image and a pre-image and its image after the transformation. So what are the characteristics of these figures? So you're going to be able to describe, apply, and use properties of translations, reflections, and rotations in justifications. So the way that this comes up is that you're going to be able to explain after a figure is, say, reflected, whether or not its corresponding angles are congruent, okay? And so that comes up quite a bit. But let's talk about translations first. So we know that a translation is a slide, and as we can see here, triangle ABC slid from one position to another. And what we're looking at here are the segments that are created in that transformation, in that slide. So the segments that would connect point A to point A prime, point B to point B prime, point C to point C prime, they do have a relationship. And if you look at these, we'll talk about what that relationship is. Okay, so what is a property of translated figures? Well, their corresponding segments and angles are congruent. So the pre-image and the image have congruent angles, right? So their corresponding segments and angles. So like angle A is congruent to angle A prime. Okay, so this happens when a figure is translated. Angle B is congruent to angle B prime. Angle C is congruent to angle C prime. So even after you translate a figure, the corresponding angles are the same measure. It doesn't change. And so same thing with the sides, okay? So the sides are definitely still the same. So angle AC is congruent to angle A prime C prime. Angle C side AB is congruent to side A prime B prime, and side BC is congruent to side B prime C prime. Okay, and so that's true about translations. What about parallelism? Okay, so corresponding segments on the pre-image and the image are parallel. Okay, that's really important. All right, so corresponding segments. So segment AB and A prime B prime are parallel to each other. So these are parallel segments. AC and A prime C prime are parallel segments. BC and B prime C prime are parallel segments as well. Okay, so not only do they preserve, congruence, they're also parallel to each other. And then look at these segments that connect A to A prime, B to B prime, C to C prime. They're all congruent as well. So these are all the same length. Okay, and that happens with every single translation. All right, and then the orientation. So the orientation says that the pre-image and image have, and this is true of the order of the points, so the relative order of the points. The pre-image and the image have the same orientation. So what that means is the order of the points, just like in this case, is, right, they go, if we were going to read the points clockwise, we would read A, B, C. Counterclockwise, we would read it as A prime, B prime, C prime. So just because the translation occurred doesn't mean that it changed the order of the points. They're still going in the same order. Okay, so I'm going to leave that up so you can copy it. And then you are going to go ahead and do the try it out. Okay, so in this column, you're just looking at an example. I gave you some examples, but you're going to be looking at an example, or you're going to be writing down an example of what this means. Okay, so for example, side lengths and angle measures are preserved. AB, like we said, side AB is congruent to side A prime B prime. Angle C is congruent to angle C prime. Don't know if you can see that, what I'm pointing to, but I showed it to you already. Okay, go ahead and do the try it out, and I will move on to the next video. I'm going to do a part 2 instead of an extended video. So there may be 3 parts to this video. All right, check in for part 2.